Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Blog Podcast. Today's Saturday, January 5th, 2018. Today I'm going to recap NBA, NHL, and college basketball, look ahead to today's games in each of those three sports, make picks for the big college basketball games as I go through when I preview those games, and then I'll do some NFL playoff things, such as the most likely to the least likely teams to win the Super Bowl in rankings, go over the All-Pro teams. That came out yesterday. Surprise players that can have impacts in the playoffs, and judging the playoff teams' seasons, whether they're successful or failure, depending on how far they go. We'll start with the NBA. Last night, the Jazz defeat the Cavaliers 117-91. Utah 19-20, Cleveland 8-31. Donovan Mitchell starting to play better, 18 points last night. Rubio had 15, Gobert had 12. Ingles had 12 and Favors had 10. Off the bench, Crowder had 16, Exum had 11, and Korver had 10. Cleveland, Sexton had 13, Hood had 12, Nance Jr. had 10. Off the bench, Alec Burke had 17, Jordan Clarkson had 12. Matthew Dellavedova didn't play due to a foot injury. The Heat defeat the Wizards 115-109. Miami's 19-18, Washington's 15-24. Hassan Whiteside had 18, Josh Richardson had 18, Justice Winslow had 13, James Johnson had 17. Off the bench, Bam Adebayo had 11, Dwayne Wade had 14. Bradley Beal had 33 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Trevor Ariza had 21. Jeff Green and Thomas Bryant each had 10. Off the bench, Otto Porter Jr. had 14. The Pacers defeat the Bulls 119-116 in overtime in what was, I thought, the best and most entertaining game of last night. Indiana's 26-12, Chicago's 10-29. Victor Oladipo, including the game-winning three, had 36 points and 7 boards. Bojan Bogdanovic had 13. Thaddeus Young had 16. Off the bench, Domantas Sabonis had 23, and Tyreek Evans had 10. Zach LaVine had 31 points, and he also had what would have been the game-tying three that would have forced the double overtime, which they waited off because he didn't get it off in time. Chris Dunn had 16. Wendell Carter Jr. had 15. Lauri Markkanen had 27. Off the bench, Alec Belanki had 13. The Nets defeat the Grizzlies 109-100. Brooklyn 19-21. Memphis 18-20. D'Angelo Russell, 23 points and 10 assists. Jared Allen had 12 points, 12 boards. Joe Harris had 18. Damari Carroll had 20 off the bench. Shabazz Napier had 10 off the bench. Spencer Dinwiddie had 13 off the bench. Mike Conley had 31. Jaren Jackson Jr. had 19. Marcus Gasol had 13 with 9 boards and 7 assists. And Kyle Anderson, look at this line. 11 points, 11 rebounds, 10 assists. And the bench for Memphis didn't do much. The Timberwolves defeat the Magic 120-103. Orlando drops to 17-21. Minnesota improves to 18-21. Karl Anthony Towns, 29 points, 15 boards. Jeff Teague, 23 points. Taj Gibson had 14. Andrew Wiggins had 16. Dario Saric had 10 off the bench. And Anthony Tolliver had 11 off the bench. And meanwhile, for Orlando, Nikola Vucevic had 22 with 7 boards. Evan Fournier had 21. Aaron Gordon and Jonathan Isaac each had 10. Terrence Ross off the bench had 13. The Celtics defeat the Mavericks 114-93. Boston improves to 23-15. Dallas drops to 18-20. Marcus Smart had 17. Jaylen Brown had 21. Al Horford had 10 with 8 rebounds and 8 assists. Jason Tatum had 18. Off the bench, Gordon Hayward had 16. Harrison Barnes had 20. Luka Doncic had 19. DeAndre Jordan had 12 with 15 boards. Wesley Matthews had 11. The bench didn't do much. The Clippers defeat the Suns 121-111. Clippers 22-16. Suns 9-31. Danilo Gallinari had 21 with 7 boards and 6 assists. Tobias Harris had 16. Marcin Gortat had 18 with 13 boards. Montrezl Harrell had 15 off the bench. Patrick Beverley had 16 off the bench. And Lou Williams had 21 off the bench. Bojan Marjanovic didn't play in the game. And for Phoenix, Devin Booker had 23. TJ Warren had 20. Miles Bridges had 10. Mikal Bridges. Off the bench for Sean Holmes had 16. Justin Jackson had 10. Josh Jackson. And Jamal Crawford had 10 against his former team. The Thunder defeated the Trailblazers 111-109. Oklahoma City 25-13. Portland 22-17. Paul George had 37 with 8 boards. Russell Westbrook had 31 with 9 boards and 7 assists. Dennis Schroeder off the bench had 10, and Nerlens Noel off the bench had 10. Damian Lillard had 23. CJ McCollum had 10. Yusuf Nurkic had 22. Al-Farouq Aminu had 16. And off the bench with 11 points, Jake Layman. Last but not least, the Knicks defeat the Lakers 119-112. The Knicks go to 10-29. Lakers drop to 21-18, and more importantly, 1-4 without LeBron James. Tim Hardaway Jr. 22 points and 6 boards. Emmanuel Mudiay 15.7 boards, 6 assists. Kevin Knox had 14. Mario Hezonja had 10. Enes Kanter had 16 with 15 boards off the bench. Trey Burke had 16 off the bench. Dame Dotson had 11 off the bench. Brandon Ingram had 21 with 9 boards. JaVale McGee had 18. Lonzo Ball had 17. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope had 19. Ivica Zubac off the bench had 10. And obviously no LeBron James, and Kyle Kuzma didn't play due to a lower back injury. Tonight's slate at 5 o'clock, you have the Hornets and the Nuggets. 7 o'clock, the Jazz at the Pistons. 7:30, the Mavericks at the 76ers. 8 o'clock, the Pelicans at the Cavaliers. 8:30, the Raptors at the Bucks on NBA TV. No Kyle Lowry again. Give me Giannis and the Bucks at home. Grizzlies, Spurs, 10 o'clock, Rockets, Trailblazers, and Warriors, Kings. So a nice slate tonight. NHL, only 7 games last night. The Penguins defeat the Jets 4-0. Pittsburgh improves to 23-12-6. Winnipeg drops to 25-13-2. Number 1 star of the game with a goal, Dominic Simon. Number 2 star of the game with 33 saves on 33 shots, Matt Murray. Number 3 star of the game with a goal and assist, Matt Cullen. The Red Wings defeated the Predators 4-3 in overtime. Good come from behind win for Detroit. 16-20-7 on the year. Nashville 24-15-3. Number 1 star of the game with a goal, Dylan Larkin. He scored the overtime winner. Number 2 star of the game with 35 saves on 39 shots, Pekka Rinne. And number 3 star of the game with the goal, Tyler Bertuzzi. The Hurricanes defeat the Blue Jackets 4-2. Carolina 18-17-5. Columbus 23-14-3. Number 1 star of the game with the goal, Dougie Hamilton. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and assist, Sebastian Aho. I'm sorry. That was the number 2 and the number 3 stars of the game. The number 1 star of this game was Greg McCagg, who had a goal and an assist in his Hurricanes debut. The Stars defeat the Capitals 2-1 in overtime. Dallas goes to 22-16-4. Washington drops to 24-12-4. Number 1 star of the game with 36 saves on 37 shots, backup goaltender Antoine Kudabin. Number 2 star of the game with 2 goals, Tyler Seguin. Number 3 star of the game with no points, but just had a good impact on the game, Dmitry Orlov. The Avalanche defeat the Rangers 6-1. Good win for Colorado. 14-8 on the year. Rangers dropped to 17-16-7. Number 1 star of the game with 3 assists, Tyson Barrie. Number 2 star of the game with a goal and 2 assists, Nathan McKinnon. Number 3 star of the game with 2 goals and an assist, Mikko Rantanen. The Devils defeat the Coyotes 3-2 in a shootout. New Jersey improves to 16-17-7. Arizona drops to 17-21-3. Number 1 star of the game with no points in the game, but he got the shootout game winner, Drew Stafford. Number 2 star of the game with the goal, Christian Fisher. And the number 3 star of the game with the goal, Blake Coleman. The Golden Knights defeat the Ducks 3-2. Vegas 25-15-4. Anaheim 19-16-7. Number 1 star of the game with the goal, Max Pacioretty. Number 2 star of the game with the assist, Hampus Lindholm. Number 3 star of the game with the goal, Carter Rowney. Today's slate's bigger. At 1 o'clock, Flames, Flyers, Wild, Senators. 7 o'clock, Sabres, Bruins, Canucks, Maple Leafs, Predators, Canadians, Blue Jackets, Panthers, Islanders, Blues at 8 o'clock. 10 o'clock, Oilers, Kings, and 11 o'clock, Lightning, Sharks. College basketball, small slate last night. We have the big slate this afternoon, so I want to get to last night's very quickly. Cornell defeats Johnson and Wales, Rhode Island by a score of 76-61 as Cornell improves to 7-8. SMU defeats Tulane 74-65. SMU 10-4, Tulane 4-10. Ball State defeats Toledo 79-64. Ball State 10-4, Toledo 12-2. IUPUI defeats UIC 66-64. IUPUI 9-7. UIC 7-9. Number 20 Buffalo defeats Eastern Michigan 74-58. Buffalo 13-1. Eastern Michigan 6-8. Cal Poly defeats Holy Names 68-47 as Cal Poly goes to 4-9. And last but not least, UC Riverside defeats Patheta 112-47 as Riverside goes to 6-10. Today's very big slate at 12 o'clock. Coming up very shortly. You have number 8 Michigan State at number 14 Ohio State on Fox. Give me Michigan State to get the win on the road as a short favorite. Only favored by 2, so I think they win that game very close. I'd say by 3. Boston College at number 10 Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's going to win that game going away, and they'll cover. Syracuse Notre Dame, 12 o'clock on the ACC Network as well. I think Mike Bray's team rises to the occasion as a home underdog, so give me Notre Dame there. ACC Network, number 15, North Carolina at Pitt. That's a trap game for the Tar Heels. They're a 9.5-point favorite. I think Pitt covers, but Carolina wins. Creighton Butler at 12 o'clock on Fox Sports 1. Butler needs this win badly. Give me Butler at home. ESPN News, UCF at UConn. UConn needs this game badly. Give me UConn. 1 o'clock, ESPN. Number 13, Kentucky at Alabama. I think Kentucky wins and covers. CBS, St. John's at Georgetown. St. John's is a 2-point favorite. I think they win and cover, but it will be close. Cincinnati, East Carolina. Cincinnati's favored by 16.5. I think East Carolina actually covers, but Cincinnati wins. That's on CBS Sports Network. Fairfield, Iona. LaSalle, UMass. Maine, UMBC. Stony Brook, UMass Lowell. Lafayette, Army. Bucknell, Boston University. Cleveland State, Green Bay. Northern Kentucky, Detroit, Mercy. UNC Greensboro, VMI. 2 o'clock, Big Ten Network. Maryland, Rutgers. Trap game for Maryland. I think they win and cover the 3.5. Wake Forest and Georgia Tech on the ACC Network. Give me Georgia Tech at home. 2 o'clock on Fox Sports 1, Villanova and Providence. Both teams 10-4. I don't like how Providence looked the other day. And Villanova's a 3-point road favorite. That is a bit dicey by the number, but I'm going to take Villanova to win. But worst case scenario, I think that is a push. Kansas State at number 11, Texas Tech on ESPNU. I think Tech wins, but Kansas State covers the 12. Oklahoma State at number 23, Oklahoma. I'm going to say that Oklahoma wins that game and covers the 10. Western Michigan and Akron, UNC Wilmington and Towson, VCU Fordham, St. Peter's and Monmouth, New Hampshire and Binghamton. Utah and Arizona on the Pac-12 Network. I think Arizona wins this game at home, and you see a little regression from Utah after they won at Arizona State the other day. Northern Illinois and Ohio, Winthrop and UNC Asheville. Central Michigan and Miami of Ohio. Sanford, Western Carolina. Bradley, Indiana State. Valparaiso, Missouri State. Number 9, Florida State at number 4, Virginia. 3 o'clock on ESPN2. I think Virginia gets the win at home. The Florida State covers the 8.5. Chicago State at UMKC. Georgia Southern at UT Arlington. Arkansas State, UL Monroe. Louisiana Tech and Rice. Appalachian State and Troy. North Dakota and Denver. Loyola Chicago and Drake. Houston Baptist in New Orleans. Wright State in Oakland. 3:30 SEC Network. Georgia at number 3, Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins and covers the number. Central Connecticut State at Sacred Heart. Baylor TCU on ESPNU at 4 o'clock. I think TCU wins and covers the 8. Northeastern and Hofstra. Charleston James Madison. William and Marion Drexel. Kennesaw State NJIT. Sacramento State Montana State. Cal UCLA on the Pac-12 Network. I think UCLA continues to roll after firing Steve Alford, so I think they get the home win there. Marshall and Charlotte. St. Francis, Brooklyn at Wagner. Coastal Carolina, South Alabama. South Carolina Upstate, Presbyterian. LA, Brooklyn, Bryant. Chattanooga, East Tennessee. The Citadel, Furman. Evansville, Illinois State. McNeese, Northwestern State. Bethune-Cookman, NC Central. Savannah State, Coppin State. Maryland Eastern, Morgan State. NCAT, South Carolina State. Florida A&M and Howard. SIU, Edwardsville in Illinois. Gardner-Webb at Campbell at 4:30. Longwood, Radford. 5 o'clock ESPN2. Number 5, Kansas at Iowa State. Iowa State is a 1.5-point favorite. I think the wrong team's favored, and I think Kansas wins this game on the road as a short underdog. North Alabama, North Florida. Mount St. Mary's, Robert Morris. Georgia State, Texas State. Penn and Princeton. Central Arkansas, Southeast Louisiana. Morehead State and Austin Peay. Youngstown State, Milwaukee. High Point and Charleston Southern at 5:30. I&M Corpus Christi, Lamar. Tennessee Martin, Southeast Missouri State. 6 o'clock SEC Network, Arkansas, Texas A&M. Portland and Loyola Marymount. ESPNU, South Florida and Tulsa. Tulsa favored by 6.5. I think Tulsa wins, but South Florida covers the number. Duquesne and Davidson on NBC Sportsnet. I think Davidson wins. Duquesne covers. Lipscomb and Jacksonville. Idaho, Northern Colorado. Colorado and Arizona State. 6 o'clock Pac-12 Network. I think Arizona State bounces back and wins, but Colorado covers the number. FAU, Middle Tennessee. Tennessee Tech and Belmont. Jacksonville State, Tennessee State. Southern Miss, North Texas. Texas Southern, Alcorn State at 6:30. Prairie View A&M and Southern. Grambling, Alabama State. Abilene Christian and Sam Houston State. Delaware State, Norfolk State at 6:30. 7 o'clock ESPN2. South Carolina at Florida. I think Florida wins and covers the 11.5. Alon, Delaware. Quinnipiac Rider. Canisius, Siena. Niagara, Manhattan. Vermont, Albany. Liberty and Florida Gulf Coast. Western Kentucky, Old Dominion. Old Dominion favored by 4.5. I think Old Dominion wins and covers. Bowling Green, Kent State. Fairleigh Dickinson, St. Francis, Pennsylvania. Mercer and Wofford. Jackson State and Alabama A&M. 8 o'clock ESPN. Clemson at number 1 Duke. I think Duke wins, but Clemson covers the 15. I don't feel good about the latter, but I feel good about the former. Trap game for San Francisco is they're at Pepperdine. I think Pepperdine covers the 7.5, but San Francisco wins. Seattle, Grand Canyon. Oregon State, Oregon. I think Oregon wins and covers. Don't feel good about that. Holy Names at UC Davis. FIU, UAB. Little Rock, Louisiana. Southern Illinois and Northern Iowa. Western Illinois and Oral Roberts. Nichols and Incarnate Word. Number 6, Nevada at New Mexico. Is this a trap game for Nevada? Yes. I think New Mexico covers the 14.5, but Nevada obviously wins. Eastern Kentucky and Murray State. Ole Miss, Vanderbilt at 8:30 on the SEC Network. Big spot for both of these teams. I think the absence of the point guard for Vanderbilt will hurt them down the road, but I don't think it'll hurt them that much here. I think they get the win here at home to even up their record with Ole Misses at 10-3. Mississippi Valley State, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, 9 o'clock on ESPN2. West Virginia at Texas. Texas favored by 7.5. I think Texas wins, but West Virginia covers the number on the road to keep it relatively close. Santa Clara, number 7, Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga wins, but Santa Clara covers the big number. Northern Arizona, Idaho State. Portland, Montana. I should say Portland State at Montana. Southern Utah at Weber State. Air Force at Utah State. UTSA at UTEP. 10 o'clock Yale and Cal State Northridge. Texas Rio Grande at Cal Baptist. Utah Valley and Cal State Bakersfield. I think Bakersfield wins on the court as a short underdog by 1.5. Bethesda, Long Beach State. CBS Sports Network, San Diego State at Boise State. I think San Diego State's the better team, and I think they get the outright upset on the road as a short dog. Boise's favored by 2.5. Colorado State, Fresno State. I think Fresno State wins, but Colorado State covers the big number at 15.5. ESPNU, Wyoming at UNLV. UNLV's favored by 13.5. UNLV wins, Wyoming covers. Pac-12 Network, 10:30. Washington State at Washington. Washington favored by 11.5. I think Washington wins and covers. 11 o'clock ESPN2. BYU at St. Mary's. St. Mary's is a 7-point favorite. I think they win, but BYU covers the number. Pacific at San Diego at 11 o'clock. I think that San Diego wins, but Pacific covers the 6.5. All right, those are my picks and previewing through the college basketball schedule. Now I'll go to NFL chat, and I'm going to rank the playoff teams in most likely to win the Super Bowl. But I'm going to do it starting with the least likely and move it up to the most likely. The least likely team, number 12, the Philadelphia Eagles. The case against them is that they're playing the best defense in the league in the first round. So a surprise player that could contribute to them if they go on a run, including this Bears game, is backup tight end Dallas Goedert, who had an offensive pass interference bogus call taken back from him in their game against the Cowboys, in which they win that game, they win the NFC East. And speaking of the Cowboys, they're number 11 on the list. I just don't have any confidence in Jason Garrett winning 4 playoff games. Their surprise player to me is someone who had a breakout game a week ago. That is Blake Jarwin, their tight end, who was named the NFC Offensive Player of the Week last week. Number 10, the Chicago Bears. The reason why I have them this low is because of Mitch Trubisky, and I just don't trust him in a playoff spot, and this is his first playoffs. Although the defense is great, but you need good quarterback play to win the Super Bowl. Not necessarily a great quarterback, but good quarterback play. That's what Nick Foles taught us last year. Mitch Trubisky needs to provide that, but to me, a player that can have a surprising contribute or an under-the-radar contribute for the Bears' case is Leonard Floyd, their first-round pick from last year. I don't think it's getting enough attention on that loaded Bears defense. Number 9 is the Houston Texans. The reason why I have them this low is because I don't like their matchup this weekend, and they'd have to beat some good teams in the AFC along with Indianapolis to go to the Super Bowl. I'm not on high as I was with them before the season. My surprise player for them is Kiki Kuti, who is their second-string wide receiver right now. And who else they have to throw to other than Hopkins? It'd be Kuti that would have an impact. Number 8 is the Baltimore Ravens. The reason why they're this low is the same reason why the Bears and the Texans, for that matter, are this low. That's because of the inexperienced quarterback that is Lamar Jackson. I do think Jackson's team's pretty good and have a chance to win tomorrow, but I'm not sure because of Jackson and the fact that the Chargers saw them a few weeks ago, and I'm sure Anthony Lynn has made adjustments on both ends of the ball. To me, a player that can have a surprising impact if the Ravens go on a run is Ty Montgomery, who was traded by the Packers mid-season to the Ravens. And he had an impact for Green Bay when Green Bay made their run to the NFC Championship game a few years ago. Number 7 is the Indianapolis Colts. I think they have a great chance to win today against the Texans. Malik Hooker was a first-round pick of theirs in 2017. I don't think he's getting enough attention in that defense, and I think he could have an impact. Number 6 is the Seattle Seahawks. Speaking of defensive backs, Trey Fowlers is my pick for them. It's a rookie in their backfield. I don't think it's getting enough attention, and I think can have an impact in their playoff run. Number 5 is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this team's very good, and I think the fact that they're playing on the road can help them rather than hurt them. My surprise player for them is Justin Jackson, the backup running back, because Melvin Gordon is not healthy. Number 4 is the New England Patriots. Obviously, the top 4 teams on this list are the teams that have first-round byes, which helps their cases in the top 5. My surprise player for them is James Delavan, who had a couple rushing touchdowns there late at the end of the season. Number 3 is the Kansas City Chiefs, who have home field advantage in the AFC playoffs. My surprise player for them is Kelvin Benjamin, who was cut by the Bills and picked up by the Chiefs. I think he can have a surprising impact in what they do in the playoffs. Number 2 is the Los Angeles Rams. They haven't been the same team since Cooper Kupp got hurt. But Cooper Kupp's replacement, Josh Reynolds, is my selection here. I have seen him show flashes in the past, and I could see him making big plays for the Rams in their run. And number 1's the New Orleans Saints. I think they're the most likely team to win the Super Bowl. They have the home field advantage in the NFC. And they have an experienced quarterback, an experienced coach, which I think is going to help them tremendously. But my surprise player for them is the man that they traded up to get in the draft last year, Marcus Davenport, who's had a good rookie year, and I think that he can have an impact on that pass rush to go with Cameron Jordan. I'm going to go over the All-Pro teams real quick, which came out yesterday. I think that a lot of these are deserving, and some of these players got snubbed, but that's okay. If you're snubbed because it's just, well, there's so many good players at that position. First team offense, quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Running back, Todd Gurley. Your flex is Tyreek Hill. Flex is more of like a special teams type of player. Tight end, Travis Kelce. Wide receiver, Michael Thomas. Wide receiver, DeAndre Hopkins. Left tackle, David Bakhtiari. Right tackle, Mitchell Schwartz. Left guard, Quentin Nelson. Right guard, Zach Martin. Center, Jason Kelce. All these are deserving. There are other guys that had arguments. I think Saquon Barkley had an argument for running back. I think Ezekiel Elliott had an argument for running back. I think Eric Fisher of the Chiefs had a case for offensive line. Defense. Edge rushers, J.J. Watt and Khalil Mack. Interior linemen, Aaron Donald and Fletcher Cox. Linebackers, Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner, and Darius Leonard. Cornerbacks, Kyle Fuller and Stephon Gilmore. Safeties, Eddie Jackson and Derwin James. And your flex in terms of defensive backs, Desmond King, who the Chargers have used on special teams throughout the year. In terms of these, I think most of these are right. I think a few of the cornerbacks were snubbed, although I think Fuller's deserving. Gilmore got that big contract, but he had a good year, so it's good that they're recognizing him. And in terms of like pass rushers, I think you could argue DeMarcus Lawrence of the Dallas Cowboys for that. And in terms of linebackers, another Dallas Cowboy, Leighton Vander Esch, who's been a surprising rookie this year. And in special teams, kicker Justin Tucker, punter Michael Dixon, kick returner Andre Roberts, punt returner Tariq Cohen, and special teamer, just in general, Adrian Phillips, Chargers. So that's I think, an all-deserving list, although I think if you had to consider somebody that was snubbed in terms of a special teamer, Adam Vinatieri, I think, had a phenomenal year kicking the ball for the Colts, and I think he'll have an impact in their playoff run for sure, because he don't miss extra points and kicks. I'm surprised that he wasn't picked. And Justin Tucker's been phenomenal through the years, but he missed a big extra point that cost him a game against the Saints. And he's missed some other big kicks this year as well. Second team, offense, Drew Brees, Ezekiel Elliott, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, Dwayne Brown, Teron Armstead, Ryan Ramczyk, Joel Bonatino, Marshall Yanda, Marquise Pouncey. That's nice that they're recognizing Bitonio for his breakout year with the Browns. Elliott ends up making the second team. Julio Jones makes it, but he had a really good year. But the Falcons had a bad year, so I can understand why he wouldn't be on the list, but he made it anyway. Hill gets on the second team as a wide receiver, although he was on the first team as the flex guy. Christian McCaffrey's deserving. He had a breakout year like many people expected him to have. And another snub on this list was the other Pouncey from the Chargers. Defense. Edge rushers, Von Miller, Cameron Jordan, Myles Garrett, Daniel Hunter. Interior linemen, Chris Jones and J.J. Watt. Linebackers, Von Miller, C.J. Mosley, Leighton Vander Esch. Cornerbacks, Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. Safeties, Jamal Adams and Harrison Smith. And your flex, Derwin James. And in special teams, kicker, Aldrick Rosas. Punter, Johnny Hecker. kick returner Cordell Patterson, punt returner Desmond King, and special teamer Corey Littleton. Rosas, to me, was the breakout kicker of the year, so he deserved an all-pro spot at least. So good for him getting on the second team. Landon Collins was somebody I thought had a chance to make an all-pro team since he made the Pro Bowl. But Jamal Adams gets in, and so does Harrison Smith. Somebody that I thought was deserving of an all-pro team, and I forgot to mention on defense, was Anthony Barr of the Minnesota Vikings, but he did not make it. Bryce Callahan's injury cost him a spot, I thought, of consideration from the Bears. And there's a lot of other guys. Andrew Luck, I thought, was a snub at quarterback, as well as Russell Wilson. But there's a lot of guys that had great years, but this is who the AP chose. So congratulations to those players. And now I'm going to go through every playoff team and say how far I think they should go to consider their year a success. We'll start with the NFC and we'll start with the Saints. I think they're Super Bowl or bust because the Saints made the division round last year. They lost on that fluky play of the Vikings. Although the Vikings deserve credit for winning that game because that was just a great play. If they get by the Vikings, and if the Vikings don't win that game, the Saints are probably in the Super Bowl. They probably get by the Eagles unless the Eagles beat the Saints in a shootout in that game last year. You never know. But the Saints made the trade up for Davenport. They made some improvements to their team. Their offensive line's better. Drew Brees is having the best year of his career. And I think this is their best chance to get to a Super Bowl because I think their division is getting a little better. I think Carolina will improve. I think Atlanta has bounce back potential. I'm not saying that this is the end of the Saints window, but I'm saying it could be. So I think this is Super Bowl or bust for the New Orleans Saints. The Rams, Super Bowl or bust at 2. You went out and made your team better in the offseason, trading for Brandon Cooks and getting the Ndamukong Suh. You extended a lot of key players on your team, such as Todd Gurley and Aaron Donald. And I really think that this is the most talented roster in the NFC in terms of the playoff teams. And I think it'd be a very big disappointment if the team didn't go to the Super Bowl. The Chicago Bears, they don't have to do anything in the playoffs. Their season's a success. Nobody had them winning the AFC North before the year. The NFC North. Most people had the Vikings and the Packers, but both of those teams are home. And the Bears deserve credit. Mitch Trubisky's been better than I expected this year. I keep saying he's the key to their playoff success, which is true. Their defense is outstanding. The addition of Khalil Mack was the big key of why this defense and team made such a big jump. Matt Nagy proved to be an excellent hire. He, to me, is the favorite for Coach of the Year. So, I don't think the Bears should be ashamed if they lose in the playoffs early. Even if they lose on Sunday to the Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys, no one had them winning the NFC East before the year. Everybody had Philadelphia or the Giants. But no, the Dallas Cowboys come through, winning the division. And Jason Garrett deserves credit for that. I'm going to say that their season has to be considered somewhat of a success for getting a home playoff game. I don't know if Jerry Jones will look at it as a success if they are one and done because he might fire Jason Garrett, but considering the expectations for this team before the year, which a lot of people had them as a sub-500 team that would finish either in last or in third in that division, Garrett and that coaching staff deserve a lot of credit. So I'm going to say their season's a success no matter what. But how much of a success will be determined on how they do in the playoffs. And obviously there's fan pressure, too, to get rid of Jason Garrett if they lose on tonight. The Seattle Seahawks, same thing as the Cowboys. I think that it has to be considered a success considering preseason expectations. A lot of people had this team as a third-place team. The injury to Jimmy Garoppolo certainly changed the outlook of the San Francisco 49ers season. And the Rams are who we thought they were, which was a darn good team that won a division. I don't think anybody had the Seahawks making the playoffs, let alone winning 10 games. Pete Carroll deserves a lot of credit. I'm sure the fans are going to look at it as a disappointing season if they lose to Dallas. But their season has to be considered a success considering preseason expectations and the fact that this was looked upon as a rebuilding year in Seattle. Number 6, the Philadelphia Eagles, or I'm saying number 6 in terms of the seed order. This is a tough one to judge because of the quarterbacks and considering that they're the Super Bowl champions. So realistically, you have to say they have to go back to the Super Bowl for their season to be considered a success. So I guess we'll stay with that. I guess their season's considered a failure if they don't make the Super Bowl because you were the champions last year. And yeah, you had a ton of injuries. That's the case against it being a failure. They give the team credit, Doug Peterson, Nick Foles, for rallying and making the playoffs and taking advantage of the Minnesota Vikings. But you were supposed to be better than 9-7. You were projected to win the NFC East. And Carson Wentz, I just don't think was healthy this year. And that is a part of it too. So that's debatable. I'm going to say Super Bowl or bust, even though it really shouldn't be that. And that's what happens when you're in the Super Bowl last year. But it's a caveat because of the injuries. And one of them being the Wentz one, although they still made the playoffs. But the issue here is that they didn't win the division. And I think this team's better off playing in their home building than on the road. AFC, the Chiefs, to me it's Super Bowl or bust. Because you're the 1 seed in the AFC. Patrick Mahomes is the MVP favorite. I don't think it was Super Bowl or bust before the season. But my expectations for the team certainly have changed, considering you have home field advantage in the playoffs. And you have the MVP favorite on your team. And if they don't go to the Super Bowl, it'll be looked upon as a disappointment. It's Super Bowl or bust for the Patriots every year, so let's move on to the number 3 seed, which is the Houston Texans. This is a tough one for me to judge. This was a 4-12 team last year, but they were 4-12 because of injuries. So they were expected to be good this year. They were the division favorites before the season. They won the division. But just watching them play, I feel like they were lucky in a lot of games, and they didn't really live up to expectations, although their record was better than I thought it would be. So, tough call here. I'm going to say if this team goes to the AFC Championship game, it has to be considered a successful season. Because if they go to the AFC Championship game, they'll be likely playing against the Chiefs. And no shame in losing on the road in the AFC title game. Although, with an asterisk, I'd say the AFC Championship game. Although, before the season, I would have said Super Bowl or bust for this team. Because I thought this team had a chance to make the Super Bowl before the year. But this team just didn't live up to expectations, although their record's better than I thought it would be. It's just that too many close wins. I feel like this team got lucky. And I don't think Bill O'Brien's that great of a coach. And if they lose today, then they'll run out the possibility of him being fired. The Baltimore Ravens are your 4 seed. This is a tough one to gauge because they're the Ravens and their expectations are high every year. I'm going to say that their season's a success no matter what because of Lamar Jackson. But if Joe Flacco was quarterback, I would have said that they had to go to the AFC Championship game. But now with Jackson at quarterback, my expectations are a little bit lower for the Ravens. So I have to say that their season's a success already because they discovered that Lamar Jackson's their best option right now. Los Angeles Chargers, to me, are Super Bowl or bust. They're the division favorites before the year. They end up getting a wild card. But I think that the road to the Super Bowl for them isn't easy per se, but I think it's doable. Beat the Ravens. You already beat the Chiefs before, and then the Patriots aren't the Patriots of old. So to me, it's Super Bowl or bust for the Los Angeles Chargers. And for the Colts, their season's a success no matter what. Although people expect them to win today, as do I. But nobody had this team in the playoffs before the year. Nobody thought that Andrew Luck was going to be this good, per se. I thought Andrew Luck was going to bounce back and be decent, but I didn't think he was going to be great this year. I thought it was going to take him some time. But you got to give Andrew Luck and the coaching staff credit. This team was projected last before the year, but they ended up finishing second in their division. They're going to go in the next year as the division favorites for sure because of Luck and because of the young talent they have all over the place, and they have a ton of cap space, and they have the ability to go out and improve their team. So I think this year is a success for the Colts no matter what. And looking ahead to today's games a little bit, the Colts at the Texans is the first game today. Joe Tessitore, Jason Witten, Booger McFarland, Lisa Salters on the call. I already talked about yesterday how Deshaun Watson behind that offensive line is the key to the game. The Colts' pass rush is okay, but it's not as strong as Houston's. But offensively, the Colts, I think, are better than the Texans, considering that the Texans lost Will Fuller and Demaryius Thomas on offense. And T.Y. Hilton and Andrew Luck and Eric Ebron and Marlon Mack will have big games, I think. Both of these teams won by 3. Texans won 37-34 in overtime in Week 4 in Indianapolis, and the Colts won 24-21 in Houston in Week 14. But I said the key to this game would be the Texans' offensive line and whether it could protect Deshaun Watson. And if Watson gets protection, I think that Hopkins will have a big game, and I think Watson will use his mobility as well. But that said, I think the Colts win the game. And tonight you have the Seahawks and the Cowboys. The Seahawks won convincingly over the Cowboys in Week 3, but that was before the Cowboys got Amari Cooper. I think the Seahawks win the game. To me, it came down to coach quarterback. This was obviously the toughest game to pick of the 4 to me. But I just like Seattle better than Dallas and Russell Wilson better than Dak Prescott. Jason Garrett's only won one playoff game in his life, which was at home against an overrated Lions team in 2014, or it was 2015 calendar year, but it was the 2014 season. And then his 2 losses came against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, one of them being the Dez catch game, and the other being the game where they had to come from behind and tie the game, and then Aaron Rodgers led the Packers down the field. And then Jerome Ellison made that catch. I think it was Jerome Ellison that made that catch on the sideline that helped the Packers get that win, and Mason Crosby kicked the game winner to send the Cowboys home. And so those are 2 of Jason Garrett's playoff losses. And then, to me, the other key to this game is Seattle's offensive line. They have a Pro Bowler on that line, but that line is not really that good. Dallas pass rush is better than I thought it would be. DeMarcus Lawrence is a big part of that. So that's another key to this game. But ultimately, I think Russell Wilson and the Seahawks get it done on the road. We'll preview Chargers, Ravens, and Eagles, Bears more tomorrow, as well as go over the 2 games from today NBA, NHL, college basketball, and we'll go over anything else that happens in the world of sports tomorrow. Before we go, I'd like to do my best bet, brought to you by DraftKings. I did not win on mine last night. The Lakers cost me the best bet. And today, we'll go college basketball, 12-team money liner. I have to get this in quick. Virginia Tech against Boston College. North Carolina against Pitt. Cincinnati against East Carolina. Greensboro against VMI. Texas Tech against Kansas State, although I think Kansas State can win that game. I just feel really good about Tech there. Winthrop against North Carolina A&T. Asheville. UMKC against Chicago State. Tennessee against Georgia. UCLA against Cal. East Tennessee State against Chattanooga. Morgan State against Maryland Eastern Shore. And Radford against Longwood. Only laying 91 cents to win $2.31. That's a small wager. And I hope you guys have a great day, everybody.